"Hey, check out this frightened guy. Even dogs live better than him. In fact, that's exactly how they treat him, like a dog. They put a collar on him, keep him caged up, and feed him disgusting food." The poor kid's still trying to figure out how and why he ended up in this mess. Bart, the evil dude with the creepy smile, makes money lending cash to all kinds of people at crazy high interest rates. But as is common in this shady business, the borrowers often refuse to pay him back. So Bart had to come up with an unusual way to secure his profits. For years, Bart's been training his nephew Danny like a dog. He just has to take the collar off and the boy turns into an uncontrollable fighting machine. When he puts it back on, he becomes tame and docile again. In between, Danny sits in his cage, eats cheap food, and reads the same manual, paying special attention to the page with a piano picture. One day when things don't go as planned, Bart shows up at another client's office. He and his goons are disarmed before they can take Danny's collar off. Enraged, Bart yells at his nephew to attack, but the kid doesn't understand the order. Still, the tenacious lender manages to break free, takes Danny's collar off, and causes a real bloodbath. Bart is really ticked off with how Danny behaved, since in his opinion, a dog should always protect its master. So he comes up with a new system, a light bulb that turns on when an alarm button is pressed. During another raid on a warehouse, he leaves Danny with the light and orders him not to take his eyes off it. As soon as it lights up red, the boy must burst into the adjoining room. Danny obediently waits next to the bulb, but there's a problem. Behind him there is a real piano. He's dying to play it, and at one point he can't resist and presses a few keys. At that moment, a man with dark glasses shows up in the warehouse. Turns out he's a blind piano tuner. He has a cheerful attitude and asks Danny if he's busy because he'd appreciate his help. The old man sits Danny down and tells him how to properly handle the instrument. He asks the boy to press a key while he tunes the strings under the piano lid. Danny happily obliges, and when the blind pianist plays a chord, he's completely captivated. The stranger introduces himself as Sam, but their conversation is abruptly interrupted. By the time Danny comes running into the room, it's already too late. Bart and his accomplices have been beaten up, and his uncle is furious. At home, he immediately orders his nephew to be thrown into a cage. Suddenly, a certain visitor arrives to see Bart. It's Wyatt, a security guard from the company where Bart almost said goodbye to his life a few days earlier. He says he was very impressed with the show Danny put on there and now wants to offer Bart a good deal. They head to an underground wrestling center where big fights are held once a month. Wyatt says that about $500,000 awaits the champion for winning a fight, but there's a nuance. His opponent must die. Bart is very interested in the offer and asks when he can start. Wyatt offers him a test fight. The fight is against a real criminal, whom no one has been able to defeat in many consecutive fights. Bart removes Danny's collar and gives the order. The result fascinates Wyatt, and Bart is delighted to have won more money in a couple of minutes than he has for the last 20 years. He's in an unusually good mood, even asking Danny if he wants anything. When his nephew replies that he wants a piano, he teases him. Then, suddenly, some men get out of a nearby car and shoot at the vehicle at point-blank range, while a man, who was humiliated by Bart the other day, watches the spectacle. Finally, both the truck and the car drive away. Danny gets out of the back with a wound and runs to the first place he thinks of, the warehouse where he met Sam. The piano player is there, but Danny doesn't have time to say anything to him. He simply passes out from loss of blood. After a while, Danny wakes up in someone else's room. He is frightened by the unfamiliar surroundings and hides under the bed. Drawn by the noise, Sam offers him toast with peanut butter and jam. The old man says that Danny has been asleep for 2 days and must be frightened, so he does not demand an explanation. For several days, Danny stays hidden under the bed, too frightened to show his face. One day, he hears the sound of the piano coming from the living room and comes out of hiding. Suddenly, he is startled by a girl who comes home and turns out to be Sam's stepdaughter, Victoria. She asks her stepfather who her new companion is and what his tastes are. The old man replies that he knows nothing about him, except that he likes music. A little later, Victoria enters Danny's room and gives him a small synthesizer. She explains that it was a gift from her deceased father, who had been Sam's best friend. After he left, Sam fell in love with her mother, and they married. Later, she was killed in a car accident. Victoria and Sam sit down to dinner, not expecting to see Danny at the table. But the boy suddenly enters the room and sits down next to them. Victoria serves him soup, and it turns out that the boy doesn't even know how to use a spoon. 2 weeks later, Sam offers to take him for a walk. Together, they walk Victoria to school, and then the old man takes the boy to the supermarket and teaches him how to choose a good meal. They return home, and Sam shows Danny how to cook food properly. When the old man asks the boy to pass him a pot, he notices family photos on the cupboard door. He becomes sad, and Sam asks the boy where his family is. Danny replies that he doesn't have any. Late at night, when Sam is already asleep, Victoria comes to Danny's room and takes him to the living room. They sit in front of the piano, and the girl teaches him several notes. Danny learns the left-hand part rather quickly. Victoria plays the right-hand part. Sam wakes up to the sound and listens to the music. He smiles, but doesn't leave the room. Time passes, and every day Danny becomes more and more part of the family. They go for walks together, take pictures, and make music. One night, Victoria enters the boy's room and asks him where he learned the melody he plays on the synthesizer. Someone must have taught it to him. Danny can't remember anything. Victoria tries to touch his necklace, and the boy turns away abruptly. However, she insists. It's time to leave everything, since he is already part of her family. They hug, and Danny happily accepts. Then Sam gives Danny half of his pay and invites him to spend the money as he chooses. The boy goes to buy something at a small store, and on his way out, he runs into one of Uncle Bart's assistants. The assistant can't believe his luck. Bart has been sick before he arrives. He says he found Danny on the streets and that no one but him cares about the boy. Bart takes Danny and Wyatt out for another fight. Things, however, don't go as planned. Before the fight, the boy says he doesn't want to hurt other people anymore. Bart tries to convince his nephew by promising him a new piano if he wins, but fails. Bart then takes extreme measures. Almost immediately, Wyatt gets flustered and expresses his displeasure to Bart. His apprentice barely dodges the blows. Bart picks up a gun and throws it into the fighting pit, but Danny hesitates, and his opponent takes the axe. However, this doesn't help liven up the show during the fight either, and Wyatt unleashes several more fighters in the ring. Now, Danny must fight them all at once. The boy barely fights back and soon finds himself on the floor, nearly unconscious. Bart yells at him that he will die if he loses, and Danny gets back to his feet. He takes out all of his opponents in the blink of an eye, even though they all had the fiercest weapons. However, once Danny comes face to face with his main opponent, he hesitates to kill him. This infuriates Bart, since the main condition for receiving the victory payment is the death of the opponent. They throw Danny back into the cage. Bart is angry that his faithful dog disobeyed him and did not receive payment. Meanwhile, Sam and Victoria are having dinner together and wondering where Danny is. When Bart leaves to attend to his own business, Danny removes the bars of his cage and finds a mysterious photograph of a woman in his uncle's files. Later, he accuses Bart of lying to him, as it is a picture of his mother. Bart then says that his mother was a prostitute and that she passed away when he was very young. The next day, Bart takes the distraught Danny on another raid. On the way, he starts talking about how families should stick together, referring to himself and Danny. But he had no idea what effect his words would have on the boy. The driver loses control and the car spins. Danny gets out of the back, takes off the necklace, and heads for Sam's house. He shows the new family the photograph of his mother and tells them what he found out about her. Victoria says she doesn't believe what Bart says about the woman's past. The image shows her sitting at the piano in what appears to be a music academy classroom. From the description, Sam recognizes the place and takes Danny there. When they arrive, they talk to a woman who knew the woman in the picture. She says that Danny's mother was an incredibly talented pianist to whom everyone predicted a great future, but one day she disappeared without a trace. Everyone knew she had financial problems and thought she had gotten involved with bad people. The woman hands Danny another photo of his mother, and he begins to remember more scenes from his childhood. At home, Victoria looks at the photo with Danny and suggests that she find out what her mother was playing at the time the picture was taken. The girl picks up a magnifying glass and discovers that it was a Mozart sonata. She plays the piece for Danny, and memories flood his mind. The boy remembers how his mother used to hide him in the closet when bad people came to their house. She tried to defend herself but was killed in front of Danny's eyes for not following the intruder's orders. When Sam arrives home, Victoria tells him that Danny has remembered everything and that they must flee the city immediately, but it's too late. Bart figured out the address and his car is already outside the building. Danny locks Sam and Victoria in a closet and tells them to keep quiet while he goes off to fight Bart's gang. Danny takes out the first batch of opponents in no time. Bart realizes he's in trouble and sends a martial arts master into the building. A fierce battle ensues. The men smash through other people's apartments and smash everything in their path, but no one is victorious. Finally, Danny manages to catch his breath and kicks his opponent just in time. The bad guy flies out of the window, but however, the fabric doesn't hold and the guy falls on Bart's car with him inside. Bart is furious, grabs his gun and enters the house. On the stairs, he confronts Danny and tells him that he has lost everything and that if he had been more cooperative, he would have gotten a lot of money. Bart shoots at the boy, but Danny escapes and hides on the roof of one of the apartments. Bart, meanwhile, breaks into Sam's apartment and identifies Danny's new home. His necklace is on a chair. Danny breaks through the floor and appears right in front of Bart. Bart taunts the boy and says that this perfect home isn't for him at all. He ruined the lives of the people who took him in and gave him everything they had. Because he's a dog, he's not cut out for that kind of life. Now Bart is forced to shoot him, as all owners do with dogs that start causing too much trouble. Bart admits he can't do it. He takes the collar and tries to persuade Danny to go back to his old life, the only one that suits him. Danny obediently approaches him with his head down, but when his uncle starts to put the collar on him, the boy abruptly changes his mind and hits him. The boy begins to strangle Bart. Victoria, seeing this, sounds the alarm. Sam comes out of the closet and begs Danny to stop. He replies that Bart killed his mother. The old man then tells him that he is not like Bart and should never be. Danny almost lets the villain go, but suddenly Bart starts taunting him. He says horrible things about his mother, and Riley tells Danny that he will always be a dog and a murderer. Unable to listen to these words any longer, Sam takes a flower pot and smashes it over Bart's head. Several months pass by. Sam and Danny are sitting in Carnegie Hall in New York City. Victoria is called to the stage. She turns her attention to Danny and plays a Mozart sonata. Hearing the piece once played by his mother, Danny weeps with joy. If this were a true story, do you think Danny would have been able to retain his human feelings after all he experienced? Share your opinion in the comments, like this video, and subscribe so you don't miss new stories of the best movies.